All right, horror hounds, and welcome to another episode of This Just In. Today we're going to be talking about Season 2, Episode 4 of Chucky, Death on Denial. So this episode, I believe, is going to be hit or miss for a lot of people, because this one brings in a lot of meta and a lot of humor, and reminds you a lot of Seed of Chucky, which I know is a lot of people's least favorite movie, including myself. But we're going to go through the things that we're in on, things that we're mixed on, and the things that we were out on. All right. So this episode, just as a plot storyline, starts off with Chucky hosting kind of like a Chucky TV show. And he talks about how this is a very special episode. And then this whole episode doesn't have any Chucky in it at all. It's all about Tiffany, Nika. We meet Glenn and Glenda. And it's a murder mystery. We have a lot of not Tiffany's friends, Jennifer Tilly's friends in real life. We got the two co-stars for Bound in this episode. We have her real life sister in this episode. We have a guy who's an improv actor playing a butler in this episode. And we have one of our good friends who is from The Real Housewives. Overall, the cast does a pretty good job. I mean, they're all real actors, and they're just playing ramped up versions of themselves. So they do a good job. The guy who plays Joe, I thought he was pretty funny, and they have some good back and forth, him and other people, and him and Tiffany. But like I said, this is a murder mystery. So we pick up where episode 2 left off, and we get to see Glenn and Glenda. And of course, if you've seen them in the pictures, the girl with long hair is Glenn, and the girl with short hair is Glenda. They're both played by the same actress, and she does a very good job. They have a lot of scenes where they're in the same scene together, and they do, like I said, she does a good job. They do a great job of making them seem like two completely different people. The hair is different, the way they dress is different, and both their demeanors are different. Glenda has more of the psychotic tendencies edge to herself, and Glenn still has that very shy, couldn't hurt a fly thing. And they do reference that. He literally says in this episode, well, he, she, they, them, says that he couldn't hurt a fly. And this episode, it does have a good pace to it. You get old, like Hollywood timey, where it pops up with a full screen and says Act 1 and then tells what it's about, and then Act 2, like the old silent movies. And this one is directed by Don Mancini himself. So the first episode I think he directed this season, he clearly had a lot of affinity for this one, and he wanted to have a good time with it. The things that I was in on. I like the murder mystery setting. I was also in on seeing Tiffany and Fiona Dourif in this episode again, playing Nika and Charles, and the back and forth. I'll continue to say this. Nika, that's the best character in these episodes, it seems like, besides Chucky himself. Fiona Dourif does a great job of being herself, being Chucky, and being herself pretending to be other people. And when they see a drop of blood and it switches on a dime, she nails it every time. But in this episode, somebody kills the butler. And Tiffany's trying to figure out who did it, because she's afraid somebody is going to let Nika out of the room, and Nika is missing. So she wants to know who killed the butler, who opened the doors to let Nika out. And she goes through all this questioning, and then we get some scenes where it's just her and her sister, and her friends from The Real Housewives, and her with the cast from Bound, the guy and girl, as they both kind of put the moves on her in a very, very sexual tone. We do get a real funny bit where Joe says, why don't you, if you want to know if I killed the butler, why don't you blow me? And starts pushing her head down, and she just crawls underneath his legs to get away from him. He's got his pants down. And behind the scenes stuff on that, you can see Tiffany had fun with that, because she's the one who kept telling him, no, push my head down so it looks funny, and I'll crawl between your legs. There's a lot of behind the scenes stuff on this episode you can see. Looks like they had a blast shooting it. A lot of good friends all together. But the only thing I'm mixed on is it's mixed on the aspect of having an entire episode dedicated to just them after just having an entire episode dedicated to just the kids. I do wish the stories kind of intertwined, and based on how this one ended, I do believe the stories are going to intertwine going forward. I mean, we're 4 episodes in. We got 4 episodes to go. Usually this is when shit's going to ramp up real hard. And we're going to get some fun, outrageous shit going forward. There are 2 deaths in this one. The butler is off screen, and we do get to find out who did it in the end. And Joe dies off screen, but then it does backtrack and show us how that happened as well. So I give the deaths kind of a mix. But it was more of a fun, kind of like movie-like type episode for this one. It was almost like a one and done, like this didn't have to be part of the story, but there were elements that went into it. Overall, all the acting, like I said, was fantastic. I did think this was a fun episode. I know a lot of people don't like this type of humor, but I found it a nice change of pace from what we've seen. And when Nika becomes Chucky because of an attack or blood or something, she gets these like mechanical arms put on her, so now she at least has mechanical arms to use. And there's a great scene where she's holding the gun up to Tiffany in front of everybody like she's going to kill her. And when she's pulling the trigger and the bullets aren't coming out, and she flips out and freaks out, she sounds just like Chucky. So it was a fantastic job. And that's just her voice. There's no Brad Dourif voicing over to ramp it up to be more like Chucky. That was just her all on her own. And she eventually sneaks out of the house, runs down the driveway before the gate closes, and hops into a van. Who's driving that van? Kyle's driving that van. So Kyle did not die in the house. She's still alive. She's still in this universe, and she's still having fun. And Glenda, who was trying to help Fiona Dourif's version of Tiffany, and she was just trying to help out, Glenda was. So Glenda leaves with them while Glenn stays behind to take care of his mom. And that's how that episode, for that portion of it, ends. We get a murder mystery. 2 people die. At that point, we don't know who killed them. Tiffany's screaming. And Jennifer Tilly's acting in this episode. She does campy over the top. But for this episode, it works. She does a good job. I wouldn't say this was one of her poor acting performances like I do in some of the episodes where she seems like her campiness is way more than what everybody else is doing. This whole episode is very campy, and all the other characters have some camp to them as well. So it fits in this one story. So once that ends, we go back to Chucky talking in the TV show, and he then shows us who killed the butler and how it happened. And then he shows us who killed Joe and how it happened. And then he brings out, for some reason, WWE superstar Liv Morgan. And he talks to Liv Morgan a little bit, and he's, trying to have a little conversation. And then he shows a clip of her saying she would love to get killed by Chucky, and how Chucky is like her favorite. And she doesn't want to be a main character. She would just love to just kind of be like an extra who gets killed by Chucky. So Chucky points out how the network would be pretty pissed if Chucky didn't kill somebody in an episode, and about how he's allowed to say fuck 10 times, and he hasn't hit his quotas. And he pulls out a knife and stabs Liv Morgan in the stomach a bunch of times. And every time he does, he's like, fuck, 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 fuck. He just keeps going on and on until he hits his quota. Which, I know for some people, they're probably not going to be a fan of that. Me, myself, I laughed out loud. I thought it was fucking hilarious. Sometimes Chucky can be over the top and it goes too far. I felt like this was perfectly in there. As an episode to go with this season, it's okay to go with the season. But it's like a stand-alone episode. I thought this was really fun. It was a good episode. I would be more on board with Don Mancini doing more stuff like this. I know I like the serious stuff most of the time, but this fell in. And we got a great introduction with Glenn and Glenda. And they are 2 completely different people, but they're not. So it still kind of fits that he, she, they, them. That whole portrayal, she does a great job. The actress does, and the actress herself doesn't say whether she's male or female. I think was it non-binary. She doesn't choose, so she knows that lifestyle that she lives in. So, since that's who she is, for her to portray the character, she can do it in a great and proper way. So I feel like she did a great job in that aspect. And we got Glenn and Glenda back, and no, neither one of them pissed their pants. So that's a plus. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed talking about this episode. Next week, we'll be talking about episode 5. We'll see how that goes. Don't forget to give me a like, comment, subscribe if you're not already a member. Turn on the notification bell so you can see when the next episode airs. And remember, guys, rest in peace.